The history of Thracian warfare spans from the 10th century BC up to the 1st century AD in the region defined by ancient Greek and Latin historians as Thrace. It concerns the armed conflicts of the Thracian tribes and their kingdoms in the Balkans. Apart from conflicts between Thracians and neighboring nations and tribes, numerous wars were recorded among Thracian tribes. Mythological instances of Thracian people engaging in armed conflict occur in the Iliad of Homer and in Greek mythology. The Greek Temenids ousted the Thracians from Pieria. The Thracians, prominent warriors who became allies of Troy, came from the Aegean coast. In the Odyssey there is only one instance of Thracians, that of Sicyones again on the coast, but they are weak. The Thracians were a particularly fierce culture in terms of violence and conflict, and so they appeared in Greek mythology as mostly associated with its stories of strife. The god of war Ares was said to have been born in Thrace and was also heavily worshipped there, in contrast to the revulsion of his worship by many other Balkan city-states. Homer recounts in the Book of Odyssey that an embarrassed Ares retreated among his Thracian followers when his love affair with the goddess Aphrodite was caught, and the two were promptly ensnared by Hephaestus. Tribal wars. Thracian tribes fought amongst each other and they allied themselves with the Greeks against other Thracian tribes. Kingdoms. The Odrysian kingdom was a union of Thracian tribes that endured between the 5th century BC and the 3rd century BC. The Odrysian state was the first Thracian kingdom that acquired power in the region, by the unification of many Thracian tribes under a single ruler, King Teres 5th century BC. It became involved in wars and military conflicts against the Romans, Greek colonies, the Kingdom of Macedon and the Diadochi, the Persian Empire, Paeonians, Dacians, Celts, Scythians and Thracian tribes. Sometimes it was allied with various ancient Greek tribes or Greek city-states. During the Peloponnesian War, Thracians were the allies of Athens. The Thracians fought alongside Athenians and Macedonians against the forces of the Spartans. Greek generals like Iphicrates and Charidmos fought for the Odrysae as well. The Thracians served under Scythian kings in 310 BC. Odrysian military strength was based on intratribal elite, making the kingdom prone to fragmentation. Although the kingdom was wealthy, a large proportion of its income was in kind and suitable portions had to be paid to the tribal chiefs. The army was mostly fed and paid by plunder. Sitalces was able to raise an army supposedly 150,000 strong for his invasion of Macedonia in 429 BC, but these economic and political factors meant that this army only held together for about 6 weeks, and any Thracian conquests were ephemeral. The Sapians ruled Thrace after the Odrysians until its incorporation to the Roman Empire as a province. Thrace became a client state of Rome at 11 BC and was annexed at 46 AD. Thracian troop types and organization. Infantry and cavalry. Thrace had the potential to muster a huge number of troops, though this rarely occurred. By tradition, Thracians honored warriors and, according to Herodotus, despised all other occupations. The Thracians fought as peltasts using javelins and crescent or round wicker shields called peltes. Missile weapons were favored, but close combat weaponry was carried by the Thracians as well. These close combat weapons varied from the dreaded rhomphaia to clubs, 1- and 2-sided axes, bows, knives, spears, aconakes and long swords. Thracians shunned armor and greaves and fought as light as possible, favoring mobility above all other traits, and had excellent horsemen. The seeker was considered their national weapon. The Bithynian Thracians had contributed a number of 6,000 men in Xerxes I of Persia campaign of 480 BC, but in general resisted Persian occupation, and turned against Mardonius's army as he retreated. The tribally frequently used Scythian and Celtic equipment. Thracians decorated their bodies with tattoos like the Illyrians and the Dacians. Thucydides writes of their infantry tactics when attacked by Theban cavalry. dashing out and closing their ranks according to the tactics of their country. Arian writes of a tactic using wagons. Archaic Thracian javelinmen would wield a crescent wicker shield and a couple of javelins. This troop type would persist into the classic and Hellenistic era. Organized groups of spearmen or javelin throwers were not used. Classical in the 4th century BC, both infantry and cavalry troops started wearing helmets and sympeltas are seen with greaves. Principal weapons in the 4th century BC were the spear and short knife. Armor, when it was available, was at first leather or bronze, but iron armor started appearing in the 4th century BC. Thracian cavalry would wear leather armor or no armor, and would be armed with javelins, a bow, or a spear. Only royal cavalry would wear armor. Oval shields and pelties were later used. Thracian cavalry was numerous. The helmet type used mostly was the Chalcidian-type helmet and, to a much lesser extent, the Corinthian-type helmet, Phrygian-type helmet, Attic-type helmet and Scythian-type helmet, with many hybrid types occurring. We must note that not a single Illyrian-type helmet has been found in the East Balkans. Hellenistic Thracian footmen could wield a knife or sword, rhomphaia, a helmet, 2 javelins and a light oval wooden shield. No Thracian infantry would wear greaves until the 4th century BC. Later native and Greek types started being used, the Greek type being rarer. Thracians used mixed Thracian and Greek equipment and armors from different time periods, to the point of wearing armors that ceased to be used elsewhere. This is something they did even in the classic era. Later they would adopt Roman armaments. Thracian mercenaries. Thracians were highly sought as mercenaries due to their ferocity in battle, but they were infamous for their love of plunder. Thracian mercenaries played an important role in the affairs between Athenians and Spartans. The Adomanta were described as expensive mercenaries. In one instance in 413 BC, Dii mercenaries were so expensive to pay that after they missed the boat to Sicily the Athenians sent them home. They were hired occasionally by Persians. Croesus had hired many Thracian swordsmen for the Lydian army. They also served in the Republican Roman and Mithridatic armies, as well as the armies of the Diadochi. They provided up to 1/3 of the cavalry in Macedonian armies and up to 1/5 of their infantry. They later formed one of the most important nationalities in the Roman army, contributing up to 20,000 troops at any one time to auxiliary units during the early empire. Nobility. A Thracian chieftain could have access to armor and helmets. One could be equipped with a Chalcidian-type helmet, a breastplate with a mitre, a wicker pelter, 2 javelins and a sword. Body armor was restricted to nobles and army commanders. Greek armor was in use in Thrace before the Classical Age. Nobles would sometimes wear pectorals on their chests as a sign of rank. Navy. There was no Thracian navy, but there were instances of Thracians turning to piracy. The Greek cities of the coast that paid tribute to the Thracian kings did sometimes provide the Thracian kings with ships, fortifications. Even though Thracians attempted to build only one polis, they had forts in hills built as places of refuge. Thracian villages had basic fortifications, as Xenophon witnesses in Anabasis. Tacitus in his Annals describes a Roman attack against a hill fort. There were many Thracian hill forts and some were inhabited. Other fortified Thracian towns existed at places like Hellas and Cabala. Notable events. Barbarians. Thracians were regarded as warlike, ferocious, and savagely bloodthirsty. Thracians were seen as barbarians by other peoples, namely the Greeks and the Romans. Plato in his Republic considers them, along with the Scythians, extravagant and high-spirited, and in his Laws considers them a warlike nation, grouping them with Celts, Persians, Scythians, Iberians and Carthaginians. Polybius wrote of Cotys' sober and gentle character being unlike that of most Thracians. Tacitus in his Annals writes of them being wild, savage and impatient, disobedient even to their own kings. Polyarinus and Strabo write how the Thracians broke their pacts of truce with trickery. The Thracians struck their weapons against each other before battle and engaged in night attacks. Diogenes was considered one of the most bloodthirsty chieftains by Diodorus Siculus. An Athenian club for lawless youths was named after the Tribali. The Dii were responsible for the worst atrocities of the Peloponnesian War, killing every living thing, including children and dogs. In Tanagra and Mycalessis, Thracians would impale Roman heads on their spears and rhomphaeas, such as in the Kallinikos skirmish in 171 BC. Herodotus writes that, they sold their children and let their wives commerce with whatever men they please. List of Thracian battles. This is a list of battles or conflicts that Thracians had a leading or crucial role in, usually as mercenaries. 6th century BC Persian Empire against Thracian tribes. Thracian defeat. 401 BC Clearchus against Thracians. Thracian defeat. 376 BC Chabrias against Thracians. Thracian defeat. 331 BC Antipater against Memnon of Rhodes and Souths III of Thrace. Thracian and Rhodian defeat. 323 BC Lysimachus against Souths III, Thracian defeat. 279 BC Gauls against Suthopolis, Thracian defeat. 214 BC Thracians against Hylis, Thracian victory. 110 BC Minucius Rufus against Bessi and Scordissa, Thracian defeat. AD 7 Marcus Valerius Messala Messalinus, Germanicus and Rhoemetalces against Dalmatians and Pannonians, Marcus Valerius victory. It is not known how long Rhoemetalces participated.